Been all down the broken road. I call on you to help me carry the load. Oh Lord, you never let me down.
Thank you for joining us today. Anything you hear in this podcast is not to be taken for medical advice. This podcast is for information purposes only, and should you find something interesting in the information spoken about, please consult your physician further.
Hello and welcome to the Broken Road podcast. I'm your host, Trent Peterson. Today I'm joined by Cassie Graziano. How you doing, Cassie?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Man, thanks for coming out all this way. Cassie was an OT at the Neuro program that I was part of. And although I wasn't on her team, I got to watch her work and do what she does and obviously loves to do. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself today?
Sure. My name is Cassie. I've been an occupational therapist now for 8 years. 7.5 years ago, I moved to the Fort Worth area from New Orleans, where I'm originally from. And I moved for the setting that I'm still practicing in today. It's a day neuro setting, high intensity, high frequency, working with strokes and brain injury and spinal cord injuries and rehabbing them to get back to their day to day.
Wow. So we were talking a little bit about it. As far as occupational therapy, you could have went in quite a few different directions, but you decided to go the neuro route, which from what I've read and then my personal experience, it's probably one of the most challenging areas, and it actually takes a little extra schooling as well, I'm sure. What drove you to go that direction?
So, in the neuro direction, you mean?
Yeah.
So, starting
both.
out,
I guess both, however, go wherever you want on that, to be an occupational therapist and then to go into the neuro.
So first, finding OT, I always like to say that OT found me. When I first went to college, went to LSU, I thought I wanted to go into vet. Then I realized that was not for me. I grew up with a father who was a dentist, a mother who was a hygienist. And so then I thought maybe I want to go into dentistry. And then realizing that's not for me either. I knew I was missing something. And I remember I got my first degree in 2012 in psychology. I enjoyed learning about the brain, how the brain works, and how people work day to day, and what makes them tick and drive. Mm-hmm. And after I got my first degree, I was trying to figure out where, do I keep applying to dental school? Where do I go from here? And I remember sitting at the computer at LSU and looking at some pictures, and I noticed a girl from my sorority had LSU occupational therapy. And I was like, what does that mean? And I remember researching that and almost broke down and cried, realizing that's me. That is exactly what I want to do. It blended my love of psychology and biology together. But I also am able to be creative, and I'm able to help somebody in their day to day. I first started out in pediatrics, first coming out of school in New Orleans, did that for about a year, kind of piecemealed some different clinics together to really build a full time. And then I just found this opportunity in Fort Worth. Had one of my classmates tell me, stay neuro setting, it's great. Maybe you should apply. And I remember getting on the plane and going there to Fort Worth for a day to interview and realize I love this. And then a month later, I moved. And I knew no one in the Fort Worth area.
Yeah, it sounds like an adventure.
Yeah, I knew no one. And so, which is not like me. I thought I was dead set in peds. And then realized this setting is so beautiful. We get to go out in the community. And so I realized that, this is where I need to be right now.
Absolutely. So I think it's pretty funny because I wasn't on your team. The neuro setting there in the gym, you really don't have a place to hide necessarily, and it's pretty wild. There's a lot of, when it's busy, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I had double vision pretty bad when I first went in there. Was still trying to overcome that. And Maya was my therapist, my occupational therapist at the time. And she did great work with me, helping me get back to where I'm at. But as I was kind of regaining vision, I noticed this, for lack of better words, short, sawed-off girl kind of pushing her way through that gym. And I thought, wow, man, I'm not kind of glad I'm not on her team. I don't know if I could hang. So, as time went on, I kept watching because you do kind of stand out amongst the crowd up there. And I noticed that what I saw as a push was actually what I now feel like is more of a personal push for you, and more of your drive and determination to get people better, and find ways to make that happen. So would you say that's accurate?
Yes. And you're not the first one to notice that. I can be very, I wouldn't say demanding, but more of I know what a person can be able to do, and learning about them, seeing their deficits. I know their potential. And so I want that for them so bad. And sometimes I do have to take that step back as well, for my profession, that, I can't make that person want what I want for them. But because I can see that potential, I try to, impact my patients to see that in themselves as well, in order to get better and want this.
Absolutely. Well, I can imagine being where you're coming from on that side of it, that it is a little bit frustrating when you can see that potential and you're dealing with somebody, and I was that way too. I think it's something to do with neuro in general. Neurotrauma just kind of pushes you in this place where I don't want to do that. And you think that you're going to be fine, but without that push, you're not. And it's so important. So totally respect it. It just took me a minute to kind of see that through a different lens as it went on. And I totally respect you and grew to respect you more as I watched you work, there in Day Neuro. So that's, absolutely. Well, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because I think I say it quite a bit on this podcast and outside of this room, that you guys don't get enough, recognition for the work you do and the time that you put in other people's lives.
I appreciate that. Yeah. The Day Neuro field in of itself, these patients are with us 5 days a week, 5.5 hours a day. It's a lot. And I do tell my patients when they first come in that you're going to be tired. And, making sure that you're drinking enough water, making sure that you're eating your breakfast. But that it's not an easy journey. You're training for essentially like a marathon.
Absolutely. For the rest of your life.
Right. And so it's not a day fix. It's hard sometimes to have that patient to realize that, that I'm in this for the long haul. That it's not easy. It's not an easy journey, but we're there with you to walk through it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of mixed information right there off the beginning too, which can be helpful and hurtful at the same time. We've talked about that a little bit, but, for me, a lot of information. I know a lot of people when they've had a stroke or a neurotrauma, that there's like a specific amount of time they say that you have to get all these, to make accomplishments and gain from those deficits that you're experiencing, which for me was a big push. You also know that there's a time frame on that. So, the push that you have is important for people wanting to recover and recover as quick as possible. But I think that if I had have known that I did still have some time, like I know now, after that it is a marathon. I think it probably would have made I may have gone, I'm trying to think of a right way to say that, but I might have been a little more accepting of, okay, I'm going to be doing this, what seems like a menial task, you know,
Yeah.
over and over and over again, because it's going to help me. And even if it doesn't help me today and I don't see what that's for, eventually it will come very, very clear. And it has now for me on a lot of different levels.
Yes, it's definitely for patients going through this, you know, they're still very early on in their journey. You know, maybe they have just gotten out of the hospital, maybe, you know, a few days prior to seeing us. And so where we land, you know, they're admitted to maybe ICU, acute care, inpatient rehab, then us. So they have already been through a journey. And so we're now the higher level of that care where we know, yes, we have that small window to make the most gains. And so, and I always want to preface people too, that it doesn't mean that you're done forever. And even when you're done our program doesn't mean that you are finished forever, because you're not. Majority of our patients go on to traditional outpatient rehab, where they continue to work and to finite some of the skills that they've learned in day neuro. But it's a very special time frame that we're getting those most gains. And so we want to allow that body and the brain to continue with that neuroplasticity and rewiring, and make the most potential that we can in this time period.
Yeah, and that time period can be very short. It's one thing that is frustrating for me. Reason why I'm pushing for the Broken Road Project, a nonprofit. Insurance companies like to fight on that. It's not a widely accepted thing what y'all do. I mean, it is obviously what you're doing it, but as far as the insurance companies, you guys are there fighting for us as a patient to show the gains that we're making, to keep the insurance companies on board, because the insurance company's job really is to try to get us done and out, you know, as quick as possible. And the old saying was, and I still have to say this pretty much with every therapist that comes in, was meet them, treat them, and street them, you know. And I know that that's not in y'all's heart, but I also know that that's something that the insurance companies would love for it to be that way. But you actually spend a lot of time, even though it is short time and it does seem like it goes really quick. You're actually there with a patient typically long enough that they become kind of like family. You end up knowing some of their caretakers, if they're fortunate enough to have caretakers. And if they're not, you become family for those people that don't have any. So I think that's a lot to put on somebody's shoulders. And I think y'all do it without even necessarily thinking about it. You know, it's almost second nature, and servitude, and the love that you guys give is just amazing. It's a special thing.
It's definitely a calling. You know, I got into the field because I felt that call. And it takes a special person. You know, what I do day to day, I'm not sitting in an office. I'm not sitting behind a desk all day, every day. I'm one-on-one interacting. And so, you know, and I've seen a lot of things, heard a lot of things about their journeys and where they are. But, you know, yeah, you're right. Those patients do become a part of our lives. And since we see them every day, 5 days a week, you know, while I go to work, they're still lingering in the back of my mind sometimes. And I'm wondering, you know, even post-discharge, how are they doing? Which can make some therapists start to get really burnt out from the job, which can be another challenge in our field in of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, a common friend we both have told me I should ask that question very often. How you guys deal with that on a personal level? Because for me, I've said this, I say it on almost every time I interview a therapist. For me, I forgot that y'all had a life too outside of that. So like I'm showing up every day and I'm doing that. And that is my life. I mean, that is at that point, everything that I do has to do with showing up there and getting better. But, and you guys are invested as well in that, but you still have personal things at home and things that you have to come to work with that could be on your shoulders. I know you're a woman of faith. I'm sure that plays into how you're able to even handle that pressure. But how do you kind of do that and keep coming back day to day?
Right. It's a very, very good question, because I remember as a new therapist, when you first start out from school, you feel like you have to do everything in your power to give them everything, right? And you forget about boundaries, and forget that you are a person in of yourself, that you have to also take care of your needs. And so I remember being that young therapist and thinking, I've got to give them almost like the world, all of it, right? And now, 8 years out, I also realize I am just as important, because if I cannot take care of myself, I can't take care of you. Every single day, that is my life. That is my career. That's what I do. I take care of people, but I also have to take care of myself, and my needs. And so, when I'm there at work, yes, you have my full attention. You have me. But once I leave, I have to mentally detach, and have to think about myself, in order for me to be that good therapist and to keep helping.
Absolutely. And I think that goes probably out past the therapy world in general. That can be, people can lean into that and understand that your job is still your job, on any given day. And if you're not pouring into yourself, you're not going to have a whole lot to give on any given day for an employer, for your family, for anybody. So and I'm just trying to make this relate for people that aren't necessarily in that world. It's still the same thing. You have to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Somebody said it to me. I do like to say this a lot too. They said, when you're pushing yourself, would you treat your best friend that way? When you're doing that, would you be like, hey man, suck it up? I know you're just lost this and I know everything sucks, but forget that and go, and I probably did that a little bit, it's probably more than I care to admit at this point, but really I tried to be a little more caring towards them. And that's the way people need to be towards themselves as well. You sit there and beat yourself up forever, and that's not doing anybody any good.
Right. Absolutely. And even when we have difficult patients who come into our clinic, us as clinicians have to also remember, when they're having a bad day, it's not necessarily about us, right? It's not what we're doing. They have so many things going on in their background, in their lives, that, it's not what I did. And that I used to, when I was a younger practitioner, used to go home and cry and be like, oh, it's my fault that they didn't like me or whatever the case may be. But to also know, they have so much going on as well. We do too, that we might have to kind of take that step back and just let them vent. Right. And let them get those emotions out, because it's a really hard time in their life right now that sometimes I just need a listening ear. And so I sit there and I'm like, I'm going to listen to you, because what other practitioner out there, your doctor, I'm just going to sit there and listen to you for a good 20 minutes. So I try to tend to make sure my patients know that I'm listening to you and I'm here for you.
Right. So you've avoided, you've been in the game for a while. You are kind of a little bit, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you're a little older than some of the other therapists in your field. And I would say you're seasoned, I guess, and have been through some times of burnout, I'm sure, and figured out coping mechanisms to deal with that, obviously, which is what you're saying. And maybe coping mechanism isn't the right word, but you do have to kind of figure out.
You have to figure out that life balance.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, because I can only imagine to be somebody that cares enough that you're going to help somebody in their worst time of their life, and we're talking about people can be very ugly. And I can only imagine. So being a person that cares enough to help them, you also have a big heart. So I'm sure it's very hard at first to figure out that balance of, that person doesn't hate me. They're just having a really bad day. Because that's just where your heart
Right.
is, So I can see that in that field is super tough. That's why I always try to, I think it's important to bring that up.
Right.
I mean, you guys go through a lot, and I say that even, not to take away from the doctors, but they're in and out of there. They're not there for sometimes 8 to 10 hours a day with somebody struggling, when y'all are.
And even when you're approaching your doctor and saying, I'm dealing with all these emotional issues, it's still okay, get out the door.
Yeah.
Here's the medicine. Here's what can help you next. I am very much quality over quantity, in my practice. And that helps me too as a practitioner and like in my practice, that for my career here on out, I do want to focus on my quality of care and not my quantity of how many people can we get through the door, because I'm just one person. I can't do it all. And definitely for any new OTs out there that are listening, it's tough the first year you get out because you do take a lot of things personally. And when patients don't like you feel like it's your fault. And if they just don't vibe with your personality, you feel like it's on you. And they take a lot of that burden home. And, I'm here to say that's learning that work-life balance is so critical, and will help you to continue to be the best therapist that you can be, and why, and just reminding yourself why I got into the field itself in the beginning.
And I know that in your field, from what I've read, there's a lot of movement, and
Yes.
It's very hard to find a place that you would call home because of all of the things that determine how the money is. It's a money game. I mean, it really is.
That's also kind of what makes our day-to-day challenging at times is, yes, clinics are a business, right? And that you are there, you got to have money somewhere, and bring that home. But reminding myself too that it's not like I got into it for the money and be like, oh, having a master's, that means I get more money. That was in the back of my mind. It was more of what career suits me. What can I love every day of my life and feel like it's not work, but it's something that I'm passionate about. But again, knowing, I have to pay the bills somehow. But knowing that the quality of care that I give to my patients is why I keep coming back every day, and why I love the setting that I am in now is because I can see them every day and I see that progress. And like we talked about in the beginning, they become family. You know a lot about them, way more than your doctor would ever know.
Right.
And so, they see that patient for 10 minutes and we see them for a very long time and we know a lot more. And so it makes it very unique and special.
I think that's a good lead in to, and we've gone a long ways before I've asked you about it, but to explain. So I had Taylor on, she specializes more in driving part of OT. But can you tell us what OT is? I mean, because I think that's where you were at right there, the time that you spend with people and what you do, and getting to know them. It's a big part of that, I believe. So can you kind of explain what?
Sure. OT in of itself is very, very broad in terms of what setting that you end up working in. So actually, the OT profession originated in mental health, using purposeful, task-oriented activities to rehab somebody from an injury or a mental health crisis. And then as the profession kept developing, we then started to get more into that medical model. And so getting into, the hospitals and really trying to keep up as well with like the physical therapy profession and of, the different careers and different like master's program, doctorate program. But OT in of itself is, this is probably where you need to pause. I'm like trying to think. It is like, it's so hard to come up with those words. It's basically whatever is meaningful or purposeful to you, your day to day, whatever that means to you. I always tell my patients from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, all of that is occupation. Absolutely. Anything that you do. And so I help you to get back into doing those things and doing the task in of itself, even if it doesn't look maybe the same as what you did before.
No, my experience, it seemed like everybody has, all the modalities each have their own level of personal care that happens in there with people. But the OT seems so much more directly involved with what is most near and dear. So for me, for instance, I'm having a hard time spitting it out, but for me, and one thing that you did for me, even though I wasn't on your team, is I was a guitar player. So playing guitar for me was huge. Even though I hadn't, and then I kind of went through a moment there was like, man, I should have been playing this whole time. Days that I got lazy. But anyways, I had very little movement on my left hand, still have some pain in there. But I know that everybody was trying to help me. They knew that was important, and they asked you to come and get with me, and see if there was anything you could do to help. And you did show me some exercises and did check on me, even when you didn't have to. I wasn't one of your patients. Said a whole lot. That was just another level of like, okay, that's who Cassie Graziano is, And it did help, Rachel also helped me there, and she wasn't my OT either, really necessarily. But y'all just poured into me, and you specifically. I just remember you coming over, and you're like, "Let me see your hand."
Yeah,
and we're going to do that. So to me, that was super personal. Even though that's something, it's a body part, and we're going to figure out how to work, and it is very important to me. So what y'all do is on that level. I think it's hard to explain, but thank you for kind of opening that up. It is a broad field as far as what you can do, and you have to be somebody that is that has some discernment and that can be intuitive. And read into what is very important to that person, what's going to motivate that person to do something. And once you figure that out, you still got to figure out, how do I make that happen?
Right. And so what makes our field so great is, we're looking at your values. We're looking at what, before you had your injury, what did you enjoy doing? What's meaningful for you? What do you have value in? Are you a person of faith? Is getting back to church something that you want to do? How are you going to get there? And so we really analyze, it's called task analysis. We're really analyzing your day-to-day task. What if maybe, and some of those patients don't even want to return to certain parts of their life. A lot of them go, that was not a good time in my life. I don't want to return to that. And, it's great to see a shift in that. But it's also to our job as occupational therapists to figure out, where do you want to go from here? What would fulfill your life and give your life meaning? And so I love it every single day to try to figure out and have that person realize, oh, I really enjoy this, and this is going to fulfill me. And even if I can't do, let's say XYZ, being able to go to the movies with my mother is something that I want to do. And so we do what we can to try to get that back, and to be able to do that, even if it doesn't look like maybe what it did before.
So do you see more positive gains when you're able to pinpoint those things that matter the most? So, for instance, for me, I thought I was going to be able to go back and function at work the way that I did before. I don't think it was going to really be possible, but I also think that my brain just was not there. It's not really, I don't want to do that. And it's not like I need to do that. I need to make a living. But it seemed like whenever my OT focused on what was really important to me, that I saw the most gains. So I guess that's what I'm trying to ask. Do you see that, once you do find that, what they really want, do you see more gains that way than trying to push in another
great
direction?
question, because actually research does show, and why even our profession is valid, is that meaningful day-to-day occupations, whatever they feel is meaningful and purposeful, when actually doing that task, the brain lights up so much more. And so you're getting so much more neural connections in the brain firing, recreating different pathways that need to be recreated. Let's say if, you lost control of the left side of your body, research shows that doing those things that are meaningful gives you the most gains. And so we do try to incorporate that however we can, even if it's at that basic level. So for example, if you're at bedside in a hospital, I know you love music and playing. If we, did an activity with listening to music, or maybe just feeling a guitar, that is so rich for your brain at where you are at that time, that it shows so much benefit. And I always say it's beautiful. I mean, it really is. It's beautiful, beautiful work. I think God working.
Oh, absolutely. And y'all, a lot of times during instances like that, that's where you would actually have a recreational therapist possibly come in and work together with them on that as well.
Yes, and they can help us too. We really, even in our setting now, collaborating with recreational therapists into doing more big picture type things. If you want to go play basketball or do those leisure things, a lot of times when we talk about insurance wants to see. They don't want to hear the word leisure. Leisure is an occupation. It's something that we do focus on, but we have to word it in a way that is going to be reimbursed. They don't see that as skilled. It's sad to say, because that is skilled and that is what is meaningful for somebody. Leisure task, to have a sense of purpose, have a sense of meaning in their life, to get back to something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think that there, a lot of times I could sit here and go on and on. I'm sure you could too, about insurance companies, but they are just looking at you like a number. So where you're sitting there and actually seeing what this person needs and wants, and experiencing that moment when that person actually lights up and they're just like, man, I thought I was never going to get to do that again. And thank you so much. I hate on my face be crying. I can't help it. Because I know what that feels like. And y'all do it so well. But the insurance companies are just looking at a number and not that person inside now.
Yes. And
so I'm sure
it's definitely hard. A lot of times too, right before I even see them, I know, let's say, for example, I only have 15 visits. That's all insurance will give us. And it's not like everybody has money coming out of their pockets and can't just pay private cash, right? But I know that I have to make those, let's say, 15 visits worthwhile. And I need to make a task that is so rich for the brain, to help them heal and to see changes. But also, giving them a home program that they can take with them, and have the information. But yeah, if in a perfect world, I feel like I'd have them for a really long time.
Yeah, well, and it's it's a heart's desire. And the reason why I started the Broken Road Project, the nonprofit, right now we're far away from being able to do that. But the hope is that we can get to a point where we're raising enough money that, and, this is a touch and go thing. I realize that with HIPAA code and things like that, there's only so much that I can know. But their families knowing that I'm out there, and y'all can say, hey, this is somebody you could talk to. And, my hope is eventually I got enough money and I can say, and I know the family member comes to me and says, if their therapist says if they could get another 10 sessions, that they would be leaving on a way better foot than they would be living right now. I want to be able to go, no problem. Here you go. Our donors helped us get to this point, and I'm more than glad to help you get to the point you need to be at. So that's my heart's desire. We'll see what happens and what God has planned for that. That's just one of the many things that we'd like to be able to do. I want to be able to outfit cars for people that no longer can drive that way. Get them in and out of their houses easier, ADA fit out their house where they can cook again if they want to cook, things like that people just don't think about.
Yes.
And a lot of them, especially in that setting, of course, y'all work with a kind of a younger demographic, right? For neuro or stroke patients anyways. And I could be wrong, but I'm saying that mostly because we have to be, you have to be mobile to a certain extent.
Yeah. So in our program, we're focusing on much bigger day-to-day occupations. So whether it's getting back to work, getting back to driving, you have to have some type of goal. I've seen where patients in the past where they're just like, I'm good and content with being where I'm at. Well, our program is driven for you to get back to the bigger occupations that you want to get back to. And I can't make somebody want, to go back to work. That's, and it's fine. It's, if you're thinking, I don't want to go back to work, I'm fine where I'm at. Great.
So I'm not trying to reach necessarily, I guess that was why I kind of brought that up, that, for the Broken Road Project, that's not necessarily, a goal there either. So someone that's not really trying to get back to anything, they don't have a push for anything, may not be a good fit for us.
Right.
I'm looking for the people that, even though they may not be able to go back to work, they still want to be able to get around their house. They want to go outside and go be able to get their own mail, things like that. And when they get done with the program, maybe they're leaving on a walker or they're still in a chair because they just haven't been able to get to that point yet. And I just interviewed Nicole Salzano, and she says the power of yet. So that just kind of wanted to stop on that for a minute. Yet they may not be on their feet yet, but they need some assistive devices and things like that, and their insurance may not cover it. And that bugs me really bad to think of good-hearted people that really want to do more.
Yes.
And hands are tied by financial institution.
And I see that a lot where I work. And it is really hard to see. And that's also where us as a therapist have to realize that I can't give someone everything, right? That I'm not God. I can't cure or, completely cure them of all their injuries and get them 100%. We want to be, and want to get there. But yes, life throws us curveballs. And it is hard to see, well, if that patient can't afford, let's say, a certain type of assisted device, how else can I get them to be independent in that? And that's where us as occupational therapists come in, where I now have to look at what are some other ways that I can get you to get to that point. Whether it's, not with this assisted device, maybe I can create something.
Yeah, you get to be creative.
And I get to really be creative, right?
That's
and which
awesome.
is why I love my profession.
Yeah.
I've made I've made splints off the stove
Right.
at work because we don't have a splint pan or anything. But if I can make something, I can make this functional and work for
I
them.
love that. That is so cool. Yeah, that is awesome. So another thing I question, and we can skip past this one if you want to, but I'm kind of curious, and no names need to be involved. Obviously, we can't do that. But is there a specific case that you can think of that really challenged you, that you were proud of when you got done? I know there's a bunch. I know that you've probably seen a lot of people. But is there one that kind of sticks out in your mind, that just was a challenge and you were able to see that person make gains, something special?
I almost feel like I want to cry right now because she's like popping into my head. I had a patient pass.
It's okay.
I've had lots of,
I'm sorry to put you on a point like that, but this is real too. I think people need to understand that you guys go through a lot of things too.
and that's something that school doesn't teach you, or really honestly prepare you for. I do have certain patients where I remember them coming up to me and telling me, you've changed my life. I had to take care of my husband when he got really sick, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to do it. And you sat me down, and I remember telling her, what do you need to do for your husband? She's like, I need to do the laundry. I need to do all these things, but my arm doesn't work. And I remember I got her to a point where she can figure out how to do this and care for her husband, even though she is going through rehabbing a stroke. And I got her to that point, and, it's beautiful to look back on. But even, knowing now, I know she's in a better place. And, those are the ones that I never realized really touch my heart and why I do what I do.
So we had to take a little pause there for a minute. This isn't for the faint of heart. You guys go through a whole lot. That's why I keep saying that. Neuro trauma is just, I don't even know how to explain, like for me personally, how much different I feel as a person. I know I'm still there. I'm still Trent, but man, it changes so much. And y'all experience that day to day. And I think I've kind of went back and forth a couple of times trying to press that point that you guys are people too, man. And that's a very special thing y'all do. So
thank you.
Super appreciative.
It's definitely a really hard field and challenging in many different ways. And I think some therapists get a little scared from it and don't want to necessarily treat neuro because of the amount of time it does take, and just the challenges that we see during, our day to day and trying to get them to where they need to be. I think some therapists seem a little bit fearful of it. So it's definitely a tough field to be in.
Absolutely. But it's got to be more fulfilling than you can ever describe to anybody really in words. I feel like you'll do God's work, and I felt that way the whole time I was there. It's just special, very special. So just to lighten it up a little bit, and I don't know if it's totally light, but you actually had a little scare yourself along the way with some physical stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that related to your field as well?
So it was November 2023. About that second week of November, got COVID, like everybody tend to have had at some point in their time. So I got COVID. Remember leaving work on a Friday. The next day, I just started not feeling well. And sure enough, that Sunday, I took a test. Great, I have COVID. But, my back was also just really bothering me. And as the week went on of trying to recover from COVID. It wasn't getting better. It was just getting worse. And I was in and out of my primary care trying to, get some answers, get some help. And I'm just like, it's my back. My back is killing me, but I don't feel good because I have COVID. But I remember it was 2 weeks after I had COVID, still just not better. And I remember during that night, I was just getting awful pains in my back. And, I remember waking up and I just knew something wasn't right. I remember I got on my 2 feet from my bed and I went to go up on my toes. And when I looked in the mirror, my right leg just collapsed out of it. And knowing as a neurotherapist, I knew that wasn't right. That something's wrong. And then I'm thinking, well, should I just call my doctor? I don't really know what to do. And I remember it was the weekend at that point, and so they weren't in office. I got one of their medical emergency lines and saying all the symptoms that are going on. And they said, I think you need to go to the hospital. And I said, well, I'm trying to take a test. I was trying to get a certification at that time. And I remember studying for it. And I was like, do I have 3 hours to take this test? No. And I said, okay. And I remember, going to the hospital, trying to get checked out and went through MRIs and they noticed, yes, I now have a disc bulge to my right, to the right side. So I have chronic L4, L5 disc herniation since 2017, but my right was new. And so that was kind of like the first time that I had gone to the hospital. 24 hours later, because they let me go. 24 hours later, I just kept getting numbness down the leg. And the ER doctor had called me asking how I was doing. And I'm thinking, I feel like they never call you, right? And so I said, well, I'm now having numbness down my leg. And he wanted me to came back in. And I vividly remember them pushing down my big toe and said, I need you to push it back up. And I just couldn't. Oh. And I remember though being, having a therapy mind, my book is coming alive to me. I now can feel what it's like to have the ability not to move a part of my body that I can previously move. And so that just was this awakening for me where I'm now had that shift in perspective of, well, now I'm a patient in a neuro complexity of whatever's going on. And so, they ran tests, they ran MRIs and saw again, my disc was bulging on my L5 nerve root. And just so, that tiny little push that it did on my nerve root just caused sudden onset of symptoms, where in a textbook, that's really not the case. With a disc bulge, physical symptoms come a little bit later, not immediate onset. So really trying to put some pieces together of what was going on. But at that time, it was very scary. I remember my father coming up from New Orleans. Surgery basically was on the table of, are we going to have immediate surgery on your spine to relieve this or not? So it ended up that they wanted to see what physical therapy can do. So I did that for a few months. And at this time, I still was in pain. I could not go to work. I took off driving for a bit, for a few weeks to kind of get myself back to a little bit of strength in my leg. But in February of 2024, so a few months have gone by, I was like, we need the surgery because I've got to get back to my day-to-day. And physical therapy was helping, but it's not going to take that pressure off the nerve. And so February 2nd, I had a microdiscectomy at L4, L5 on my right side. And it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. But it really shifted my perspective into now I was a patient. And now I had real understanding of how can I get up from my bed? I have no core strength because my core helps my back and to help you get up in bed. I had to think, okay, put my little therapy hat on. I have to now log roll and do all of these things in order to even sit myself up. I remember I couldn't even sit up like I am now. I had to literally like be leaning on the table. So I would time myself, how long can I sit up? It's like few second intervals. But had a lot of physical therapy. And I also just did a lot of rehab on myself, but it was a good 15 weeks until I was able to return to work. So left on a Friday, felt fine. And then 15 weeks later, I was able to go back.
Yeah. And I would say that probably gave you a little different picture on just the vulnerability or, go from being totally healthy. It gave you that aspect as well. So not only did you see, I'm just guessing, but not only did you see like, okay, these are the things that these people are dealing with when they're trying to get at what it feels like to not have core strength, but also what it feels like emotionally to be in that state. To go from being a totally healthy, able to walk, almost taking, or without pain and function day to day, taking those things for granted, because we all do. Even now it's like I pray daily that I don't forget those small wins and what that was like, and to have gratitude for every waking moment, every breath that I take, and know that that's
absolutely because it's always like, yes, that was hard and it felt like the worst, but it could always be worse, right? And also too, I always had to remind myself to give myself grace. And even to this day, because I remember in my journey, getting back to work, I knew I was not fast anymore. I could not just walk at the speed that I walked before. And in our program, it is very fast paced. You see a lot of people going back and forth quickly. I have to, I'm taking care of multiple patients at the same time, making sure that they're doing their thing. So I knew that I could not be fast, but I had to give myself permission to say, it's okay. Mm-hmm. You need to step back and give yourself grace. And knowing too, my patients will understand as well. And so, I had to go through that journey of myself.
That was hard being the kind of, like I said, I got to watch firsthand and see how you are, on a day-to-day basis. And I know that had to have been frustrating to not be able to operate at 100% and do what your heart desires with ease.
Yes. Yeah. I know what it's like not to be able to drive and having to rely on people wanting to go back to work and you can't. And so that really helped with that perspective shift and helped me to better understand too and have that empathy, which I already have empathy before, but to really understand too that some days are going to be hard. And, I had my fair share. I remember breaking down in physical therapy on one exercise that I was like, that is so hard for me. So also just taking that step back and knowing that maybe this person can only do, let's say, a couple reps and that's it. And that's okay.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I can only imagine, but that's, blessing in disguise. I know that there was nothing fun about having that experience, but probably helps to be able to relate a little bit more. The fear factor is so legitimate of that moment when you can't control your body like you're supposed to. And that's a very hard thing to describe to people that haven't ever experienced it. So
yes, and now I'm able to relate and know, yes, that it's hard to do.
And you probably had some nerve pain as well, I'm sure.
Yes,
like
and
which is also very hard to explain
yes.
To people. to me, when I describe the pains that I have now, because I still have some things with this side in my eye and the optical nerves, the 3 nerves that go around there. Every once in a while, I get really sharp. I'll get a really sharp pain. Most of the time people don't know when it's hurting, but every once in a while it's to the point that's just kind of like, wince, and they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine.
Yes.
The best way I can describe that feeling is like sticking your finger in a light socket, I don't know, or like the foot or the neuropathy in the feet. The best way I can describe that is like when you sit on your foot for a while and
and that's tingly.
but it doesn't go away. It's not like you can just, shake it off.
Yes.
It just lasts and lasts and lasts. So that's the only way I can describe it. But now you've experienced a little bit of that yourself and are able to relate a little bit more in that. So I guess the surgery worked really well then. And
yeah, so obviously the surgery, I had about 8 weeks to recover, or 10, something like that, in order to recover to be able to go back to work, because I had spine percussion, so I couldn't bend, lift, twist for a good amount of time. And so even when I returned back to my day-to-day work, I still went to therapy about 3 times a week, and I'd go like after I saw patients. But to this day, knock on wood, I'm feeling good on that right side. I'm glad that gotten taken care of. I do know that I still have that bulge on the left. So unfortunately, I do know the reality of I might need another procedure in the future for my left. Because even when I did get the right side done, I all of a sudden got my left side pain again, and that was gone for a while, and it just creeped back up. So every now and then I'll get kind of that flare up. So I now I really take a different view on even how I work out my body, what kind of exercises that I do in order to continue the strength that I need for my back, in order to prevent me from having another surgery.
Right. Yeah. And I think, that's really good too. I feel like we could sit here and talk all day. But you did hit something else that's really near and dear to me as well. I'm working out now. I had a trainer before my stroke. I wish I could do that now. And she has offered to help me. And I have went and worked out with her some since the stroke, but it's not something I have day to day. But she was big on it and has rehabbed herself as well. And I think people need to understand, you don't just go out there haphazardly start working out,
right.
But there are ways to take care of your body to prevent further injury or surgeries, or at least extend that time on those surgeries.
Yes.
And I think that goes for not just those type of injuries or those type, all the way around. Heart
right.
health, all of it. There are many things that you can do yourself to take better care of yourself. And right. I highly suggest everybody look into their own health and be their own advocate and start taking it a lot more serious. I never did. I can't make anybody do anything the same as you can't, but I try my best to give them as much information as I can, even if it's kind of annoying. I'm that guy that reads all the time.
Well, and even, working in the neuro field, we see so much out there of what can happen due to maybe poor habits, diet, stress, chronic stress, what it does to the body, that it does make me more aware, and making myself to try to have good habits, or else if I can't take care of me, I can't take care of my patient. So, and that just goes back to what we had talked about before of, why it's important to you to take care of yourself.
Right. Well, that's cool. I think we're kind of closing out. Is there anything that we haven't gone over that you kind of think is important to talk about today? How about, I always ask everybody and kind of put them on the spot, but some words of inspiration or motivation for people that may be listening that are struggling to get on their feet, or just having a hard time in life in general. It doesn't even necessarily have to be trauma or neurotrauma. Just, do you have any words of wisdom from Cassie Graziano?
It's a really good question. I feel like in general, I learned a lot of just grace and having compassion for yourself. One thing that I learned I was in a leadership development class, and I made a mission statement for myself, and it's to have compassion and empathy to those I encounter, including myself, through my love and passion of life. And so I give myself compassion and empathy to me, and to know though that it's okay to have hard times. Life is going to throw those hard times, but there's always another side, a brighter side that comes from it. And even if we don't know why that is right now or where we are right now, that there is something else that's coming.
Absolutely. Man, I love a story of hope, and that's what I feel like you just left us with there. So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please make sure to subscribe, and that way we can get more content out to you. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you so much.
I'll do my best one day at a time on the broken road, on a broken road.